Hello and welcome to episode 22 of the Sandeman Street Podcast, a podcast about Dundee and Dundee United from fans of both clubs. I'm Andrew, and as usual, joining me today is my regular co-host Jack. Jack, how are you today?
I'm not too bad, mate. Yourself?
Feel the cold?
Yeah, but I'll power through this.
We'll battle through it, mate. We'll battle through it. We've got a lot to cover today. But just before we do that, my usual plea on the social media front. If you are listening on YouTube, like this video, please. It would mean a lot. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We are also on Twitter or X, whatever you prefer. It is at Sandeman ST Pod. That is at Sandeman ST Pod, and on Instagram we are at the Sandeman Street Pod, at the Sandeman Street Pod. If you could follow us on both of them or either, whatever one you have, that would be great. Boosts our followers, and also we'll update you when new episodes drop, so that would be great. So Jack, for the past few weeks I think we've probably started on United. But since Dundee won for the first time in about 4 years, we'll start with them. A 3-1 victory against St Mirren at Dens. I think it was one of the type of games where if you weren't there and you were looking at the stats, you'd think St Mirren absolutely battered us and we were not lucky, but we snuck the victory. Whereas when you were actually at the match, you would have probably seen that you would have had a different perspective on what actually happened, and it was one of the ones where St Mirren had loads of the ball, had loads of corners, but done absolutely nothing with it. I mean, did you see anything on the highlights at all about it?
I watched the highlights. I didn't see the stats, but to be fair, the highlights were pretty even, to be honest. I thought the Dundee goal, the first goal, was really poor, mate. But first goal, the only goal they conceded was really poor from, I think it was Robertson, a really slack pass, and St Mirren managed to get through and score. But yeah, overall, to the highlights anyway, it did look quite an even game, and it looked like he had a good game according to the highlights as well, which is good to see from him as well. So yeah.
I mean, you touch on the goal that St Mirren scored, and yeah, it certainly was very, very poor from Dundee's perspective, especially for Clark Robertson. I mean, he's trying to pass to Simon Murray, but the pass is never on. I don't think the best passers in football history, your Pirlos and whatnot, would manage to find Simon Murray from the angle that he was trying to pass it from. So, a very, very big lapse in concentration from him. But no, the stadium, when that goal went in, turned a wee bit toxic. There was a very vocal majority at this point singing Presley, get to you know what. And I mean, I've always been the type of person where, yeah, if you want the manager gone, yeah, if you want John Nelms gone, whatever, that's your prerogative, that's your opinion. But whilst you're inside the stadium, support the team, back the team, try and be as positive as you can. Understand it can be difficult when you're losing a lot. But what really did help was that we managed to get ourselves back level, equalised within 2 or 3 minutes of the goal going in, and it didn't turn into a massively toxic environment that it could have and was turning into. So yeah, it was. I mean, Dundee's goal that conceded St Mirren scored was a poor one. It was a pretty poor goal for St Mirren to lose as well, for us to equalise. Gogic scoring an OG. At the time, it actually looked like it was Simon Murray who got a toe to the ball, but it was Gogic and it was an own goal.
He celebrated like it was him.
Oh, he did. Well, yeah, that's Simon Murray for you, but I think Simon Murray kind of made the point to come over to the Derry and lift the crowd and get the fans back on side for the players. I mean, even after that goal, and then when we went 2-1 ahead with Derry Wright, now, it was a cracking strike for Derry Wright. I think the goalie was a wee bit suspect, but it was a cracking strike. Even then, there were still fans shouting about Stephen Presley and whatever. I mean, just to briefly touch on that, I mean, I don't know what more Dundee fans are expecting from Stephen Presley. I think the fact that where we are isn't really his fault. He's been dealt a bad hand this season. I've said this before on the podcast. I don't think you're going to get many managers doing any better than what he's doing this season. Yeah, he does come out with questionable things in the media. The one that he said on his first day about not winning trophies, I'm your man, and all that sort of thing. He come out after the match on Saturday and said that he had a dream about putting Joe Wesley in midfield. These sort of things are a bit bizarre. You could probably do without saying them, but I mean, I actually don't mind them. I think he's doing as good as he can with the hand he was dealt. Hopefully, with the new structure they put in place in the summer, it gradually gets better. We'll have a decent January window. We'll manage to keep ourselves in the Premier League, and then we kick on from there. I think this season is all about staying in the Premier League by hook or by crook. We just need to keep ourselves in this league. I've said this before in the podcast. When Dundee have a season like this, what tends to happen is they get relegated. When Motherwell have this sort of season, when St Mirren have this sort of season, when obviously Kilmarnock did get relegated recently and brought themselves back up, when these teams have bad seasons, they historically manage to keep themselves in the league, and then they can bounce back with the fact that they're in the Premier League. They don't have to go down, cut their old budgets and restart themselves in the Championship. Dundee always have to do that, and it's just up, down, up, down, up, down. There's no stability. Dundee keep themselves in the league this season, even if it is winning a playoff, then that's the main goal, in my opinion. But back to the match on Saturday, obviously went in at half time 2-1 ahead. That was massively important, in my opinion. And then in the second half, I haven't seen the highlights other than the goals, but St Mirren had a lot of the ball, especially for a period probably around 50 minutes to 60 minutes. They had a lot of possession, a lot of crosses into the box, but there's not really any sort of a massive glaring opportunity that I could think of. John McCracken wasn't exactly busy. There was one moment where Mandron kind of tried to go round them and McCracken blocked it, but Mandron was offside, so you can't really even count that. So by the time it got to where it when Wesley scored the third goal, and what a cracking goal that was. I mean, it was, I wouldn't go as far as saying it was a comfortable second half, because it was far from it, but it wasn't one of the ones where you're 2-1 ahead and you're protecting your lead and St Mirren are batting chances in for all sorts of angles and they're hitting the post and whatever. They hit the bar, but at that point it was 3-1 in injury time. So yeah, a good result for Dundee to go 4 points clear of Livingston. They go above Kilmarnock and above St Mirren. They're within a result of United. Who would have thought of that a few weeks ago? So yeah, a positive Saturday for a change. Is there anything that you would like to add to that?
I'm just going to talk about the chance that Presley were getting, because from the outside looking in, I think Dundee are they're doing decently well. Okay, they're not winning every week, and fans are wanting better performances and whatnot. But like you say, you're above Killie, you're above Motherwell, you're above St Mirren, you're above Livy, or maybe not Killie, I don't know. But you're above these teams that I've been in the Prem for a good number of years now, and I don't really know what else fans are expecting from Presley. You can only piss with the cock you've got, and Dundee have got a set budget, and he's got to work within that budget. And as you've brought up previously, it's hard to build a team from fresh every year, and that's what Dundee seem to do every season. But he can only do what he can, and I think he's doing a decent job so far. Like you say, you're only 3 points off us. I don't think we've been particularly great this season so far, but it's nothing to sniff at. That you're already 4 points off, 4 points off the drop, and you are getting these results against teams. So I think the abuse is unwarranted, in my opinion.
No, I totally agree. I mean, I'm definitely, I don't know, when I come on this podcast, probably doesn't appear that way. I'm definitely a positive fan. I mean, I hate booing players and shouting at the manager and all that sort of thing. I just don't think it's beneficial to the team. Yeah, maybe at the end of the match, once the final whistles went, vent your anger at the manager, vent your anger at the board, whatever. But in the 90 minutes, you're a supporter, you're there to support, you're there to encourage your team. I've never seen a team react to getting booed by their own fans. Like, I just don't see the point. And I hate the argument of we pay to get in, so we can do what we want. I maybe do understand it a wee bit, but you're there to support the team. It's counterproductive booing them, but regardless of that, I just think that from what Presley was given, he's came into a job, and although you'll have his say within incoming transfers, the way that the whole structure's working now, especially now that they've got this new head of recruitment in to work with Billy Kirkwood, to work with David Longwell, to work with John Nelms, to work with Gordon Strachan. There's a whole new structure where they're identifying players and effectively giving them to the head coach, and the head coach's job is to coach them, not but obviously to manage them in a way that he's not dealing with contracts, he's not dealing with all that sort of stuff. His primary focus is on getting 3 points on a Saturday. Now, I'm not saying for a second that I'm led to believe that Stephen Presley has absolutely no input whatsoever in transfers. If he identifies someone he thinks might be a good sign-in and he likes, then I'm pretty sure that the new structure will take this into consideration, and they'll come back to him with the new data thing that they're using and say, yeah, we agree, let's go for him, or maybe why don't you try this person instead. That's got to take shape, and that's got to they've got to be patient with that. You need transfer windows for that to show fruition. It's never going to work after one transfer window, especially when you've had to sign so many players because you've lost so many players. So I think all these elements have to be taken into consideration. It's not just as simple as Presley's came in the summer and the results have fallen off a cliff. People seem to forget that we had a pretty poor season last season as well, and we had better players. We had Mulligan, we had Cameron, we started the season with McCowan, we had Larkesh. Are they players would get into this current team? In my opinion, Trevor Carson's a better goalie than McCracken. We let him go to keep McCracken. That's the manager's choice. We lost Shaughnessy. Shaughnessy would walk into that team as well. You could argue that Tiffany would get into that team. We've lost all these players. Mo Silla's another one. I think Ethan Hamilton and even maybe Paul Digby are better than Mo Silla. But all these players we've lost need replaced, and they need replaced by players of a level or better for you to do better than what you did last season. So we're ticking away all right. We've just got to hope that we keep picking up these results, get ourselves to 35, 40 points, and hopefully next season we can kick on again whilst being a Premier League club. But we'll move on to the United side of things. Now, for a 1-1 draw, there was no end of drama. We all watched it in the pub after the Dundee game. I don't know if you watched it live, but what was your thoughts on that result?
I never watched it live. I watched the highlights. But as I've said previously, Killie were a bogey team. I'm not surprised we didn't win. I think looking at the stats, it was a very even game. I think basically every stat was head level, like shots, etc., etc. I think possession was fairly similar as well. So I think a draw is a fair result. I think the way the draws came about is unfair, but we'll discuss that in a bit, I'm sure. But I think it was obviously a tough place to go. It's not a great pitch, and we always struggle to play there. I think, in hindsight, you take a draw because it's, like I say, we don't have a good record against them. It was good to see Dave Richards back in the first team, dropping Kucherenko, who we've discussed last week, probably needed dropped, and I think Richards didn't really put a foot wrong. He was unlucky with the penalty. Obviously, he saves it, but doesn't get to the rebound. But I think he's done enough to get into the squad next week. But yeah, I think it is a fair result overall. What did you make of it?
I noticed that Jim Goodwin said that Kucherenko was conveniently injured. he's dropped. He's conveniently injured for some weeks. He did say that he would have dropped them anyway, but it was very, very convenient and a bit of a get out of jail free card for Jim Goodwin to say that he was injured. But whether you believe that or not, I'm not too sure. As for the game, I thought Kilmarnock maybe started the better team. Maybe United, it was a bit to and fro. Kilmarnock came into it, they got their goal. They probably were the better team overall in the first half. United were probably the better team overall in the second half. The game lacked quality in my opinion, but I don't think you can have too much quality on that pitch. It's an absolute joke. I mean, I'm not a fan of AstroTurf pitches at the best of times, but there's a lot better AstroTurf pitches than that. It's run down. You could clearly tell that they're doing the bare minimum to keep it to a standard because they're getting a grass pitch back next season. So it's certainly not conducive to any sort of decent standard of football anyway. But all in all, I thought it was a game that there's clearly two teams that are struggling for form. Kilmarnock are absolutely hopeless. I think I seen a stat that from about Stuart Kettlewell. Now obviously all of these games are not with Kilmarnock, some of them are with Motherwell as well, where he's only won like 5 Premier League games in like 28 games or something like that as a manager. So when he got the job in the summer, I had a feeling that they would struggle. I didn't think he's a very good manager. I think he's very arrogant. His biggest fan is himself. The whole thing about stepping down when he was getting a bit of dog's abuse from Motherwell supporters. I mean, he's going on about like he's the first person in the world to get abuse off football fans. Now, I'm not saying that abusing him or abusing his family like he claimed is the right, but why bring it into the public domain? Because it's just going to be something that's always going to be talked about now. So, yeah. Long may he stay there, to be honest with you. Now, they might turn it round, but I don't think he's a good enough manager to do that. You look through their team, they've, since 2 seasons ago when Derek McInnes got them qualifying for Europe, they've gradually lost players and they've never really replaced them. It wasn't, as I say at the beginning of my piece, I didn't think it was a game that had much quality in it, and it was two teams lacking in confidence.
Yeah, that would make sense. I mean, United haven't been on a good run of form, and I don't think Killie have either, so that does make sense. I seen the Waters penalty. I thought, for Waters penalty, obviously we'll discuss whether it's a penalty or not in a bit, but I think a confident player scores that penalty, mate. He's obviously just back for injury and he's probably not match fit yet. I don't necessarily think it's a bad penalty. I think the keeper guesses right and makes a good save, but I think a player with confidence is going to bury that. And I think just the whole United team in general is lacking confidence. I think people are getting wound up at each other a bit too much now, and I don't think, just from the outside looking in, it doesn't seem like the atmosphere is amazing just now. I don't know if that's just a poor run of because of the form or what. It just seems like there's mistakes happening here and there that are just winding up people. But like you say, it doesn't surprise me that it was a game where it lacked quality. I thought United's goal actually, coincidentally, was quite a nice piece of play. But outside of that, I didn't see anything from the highlights that suggested that it was a good game.
Yeah, United's goal was a well worked goal. On that, the quality of the goal outshone and was a bit of an anomaly in a game that had very little. As I say, I mean, it is obviously to do with the quality of the players playing, but as well as the fact that, I mean, that the pitch is just no, like if you want to pass the ball around, you're not going to manage on that pitch. It's just not conducive to any sort of decent standard of football. I mean, Falkirk's pitch is probably better. And I mean, even looking at the Falkirk when we were there a couple of weeks ago, the bounce that led to their winner, and that's a good AstroTurf pitch. So, yeah, there's not much more that I could really think to say on it other than I thought it was two teams lacking in confidence. and the quality of the performances from both of them weren't very great. I thought they both looked very nervous to lose the game, and a draw was definitely a fair result.
Agreed.
Well, since we're agreeing on that, we'll move on to the score predictions that we made for the games at the weekend. And Jack, if the quality of the game between Kilmarnock and Dundee United was bad, the quality of our predictions was worse. So, for Dundee versus St Mirren, I went for 2-2 and you went for 1-0 St Mirren. So, with a 3-1 Dundee win, that leaves us with 0 points each. And Kilmarnock against Dundee United, I went for a 2-1 United win, and you went with 1-1. So, no, sorry.
I was going to say, I was like, wow, that's great.
I'm looking at the score. I'm looking at the score on my predictions. Sorry. I went with a 2-1 Dundee United win, and you went with a 2-1 Kilmarnock win. The score was 1-0, 0 points. So,
should have been 2-1.
It should have been 2-1. So anyway, that leaves the standings. Andrew total 4, Jack total 5. So Jack, you retain the lead going into the next week of the score predictions. We will now go through the other scores. So we'll go through the Premiership scores first. There's also wanting to touch on the third round of the Scottish Cup. So on Saturday, the scores were Dundee 3, St Mirren 1, Motherwell 0, Hearts 0 in the big game with the big crowd. And Kilmarnock 1, Dundee United 1 in the late game. Moving on to Sunday, Hibs 1, Celtic 2. Loads of goals at Ibrox. Rangers 0, Falkirk 0, and Livingston 0, Aberdeen 1. Aberdeen for the first time in their history doing Dundee a favour. Usually what happens is that they lose to the team round us and then they come to Dens next Saturday and win. Maybe I'm living in a parallel universe, but Aberdeen have done us a favour. I couldn't quite believe it. Moving on to the Scottish Cup third round, the scores were Airdrie 4, Hamilton Accies 0. I don't know if you noticed, but after that result, Jack, John Rankin resigned as Hamilton manager.
I never.
Annan Athletic 4, Buckie Thistle 0. Ayr United 3, Turriff United 0. Bankside 0, Ross County 2. Benburb 0, Montrose 3. Bonnyrigg Rose 1, Spartans 2. Camelon Juniors 2, Edinburgh City 1, Dumbarton 0, Auchinleck Talbot 4, Dunfermline Athletic 2, Queen of the South 1, East Fife 0, Arbroath 2, Elgin City 4, Stirling Albion 2, after extra time, Forfar Athletic 0, Partick Thistle 2, Kelty Hearts 2, Brecon 0, Peterhead 2, Greenock Morton 2, with Greenock Morton winning 5-3 on penalties, Raith Rovers 1, Alloa Athletic 0, a bit of a shock here after extra time. St Johnstone 1, Cove Rangers 2, lol. Stenhousemuir 4, Clachnacudden 1, and after extra time, Stranraer 2, Clydebank 1. On Friday, it was Linlithgow Rose 1, Queen's Park 3. Now, after all that, we had the Scottish Cup draw last night, which, as usual, Dundee got the bullshit draw of the round, fourth round draw. Out of the last 4 seasons of the fourth round draw, we've had an away tie against the Premier League team, and on the only time we've not had that, we got United. So our luck in cup draws continues to be absolutely horrendous, but we'll go through the draw. Aberdeen with their usual home tie against a lower league team. They've got Raith Rovers at Pittodrie. It's Airdrie against Arbroath, Auchinleck Talbot against Celtic, Camelon Juniors against Elgin City. They beat Edinburgh in the last round. Dundee United v Ayr United. Dunfermline against Hibernian. Hearts against Falkirk. Kelty Hearts Cove Rangers. Kilmarnock v Dundee. Livingston v St Mirren. Motherwell v Ross County. Partick Thistle v Montrose. Rangers v Annan Athletic. Spartans v Tranent or Inverness. Stenhousemuir v Morton. And Stranraer v Queen's Park. What's your thoughts on the draw, Jack?
Who was Annan against? You said Rangers, but I don't think that's right.
Annan are at Ibrox, yeah.
It's not Auchinleck. Oh no, Annan, yeah, you're right, sorry.
Auchinleck have got Celtic.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's a United. Ayr, I think you said United had. Tough game. They've done decent in the Championship this season. I think Dundee have obviously got a tough draw away at Killie. But as for Auchinleck is a great draw for Auchinleck Talbot. Celtic Park, at Auchinleck's ground. Celtic fans obviously come there in numbers, probably. They're going to make a good amount of money from that, and it's going to be a great experience for that club, as well as Camelon. Camelon have got a great chance of going through to the next round as well, with Elgin City. So they were able to beat Edinburgh. There's no reason they can't beat Elgin, and it'd be good to see a team like that progressing quite high up the tournament. So yeah, it's been quite a good draw overall.
There was a bit of a suggestion about whether or not Auchinleck v Celtic might get moved potentially to Kilmarnock. Now, as much as that would be a good thing for Auchinleck in terms of the maximise the revenue, Celtic would take at least 5,000 or 6,000 them there, if not more. I think it ruins the David v Goliath feel to that Scottish Cup tie, where it's at a little junior ground like that, and a pitch that Celtic will never be used to. I mean, I'm not saying for a second that because it's at Auchinleck that Auchinleck are going to beat them, but when you take it to a place like Kilmarnock or a bigger stadium, it takes any sort of advantage away that Auchinleck have. And I remember when Bonnyrigg were in the juniors and they drew Hibs and they'd done that, they moved it to Tynecastle, and you know what, you can't blame them because they're getting far more money than they would have got if they had played them at Dundas Park. And Hibs beat them 7-1 or something like that. So It's. I hope for the sake of the feel of the game that it gets played at whatever. I think it's Beechwood Park, Auchinleck's ground's called. But I did see that they've been selling hospitality already, and it's sold out. And it's sold out in minutes. So that may suggest that they are actually playing there. As for our draws, it's a Dundee versus Ayrshire double, isn't it? United v Ayr and Killie v Dundee. We obviously got Kilmarnock at this stage of the competition a couple of years ago, and we were 2-0 down after 5 minutes, so let's hope that we could avenge that defeat. And with a lot of lower league teams playing against each other in the next round, there'll be plenty of them in the next round, so maybe a more favourable draw this time, because we didn't seem to really ever get them. But moving on, Jack, now ref watch. Oh, there's a lot to cover. Matthew McDermott certainly is never short of talking points, shall we say. Now, usually what we'd do is I would go through these all with you individually, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to name them all, give my opinion, and then you can give a counter argument. You can agree with me, and then you can obviously give your opinion as well. So the 3 incidents I wanted to speak about: first of all, the penalty that United got; second of all, the penalty that Kilmarnock got; and then thirdly, the, in inverted commas, goal that Kilmarnock felt they should have had. In my opinion, the referee got them all wrong. Every single one of them. I could understand why you give United the penalty. Now, from the broadcast camera, first view, it was a penalty all day long. They then showed in one of the replays, they showed a low down kind of pitch side camera from behind the goal, and you can see, I think it's Carestis or something like that, the name of the boy. You can see that he's halfway down before the challenge is even there. It's a dive, and yeah, there is minimal contact, but this is what I was saying a few weeks ago, when I feel like refs need to learn basic human movements. The way that challenge came in doesn't constitute the way that boy fell over. So as much as I can understand the referee giving it on field, and especially from his view and the view that we first had watching it on telly, I don't think it's a penalty when you actually see it back, and that's where VAR has to come in my opinion. And this is where my frustrations come with the whole clear and obvious thing, because if the referees disagreed in VAR that wasn't a penalty, their remit would be, but we can see why he gave it, there's an argument for why he gave it, so we're not going to overrule it. Now, moving on to the penalty that Killie got, it's even more embarrassing. I mean, yeah, the United player, I think it's Carestis again, so you got, in my opinion, a bit of karma, but he goes in to challenge him. Yeah, he doesn't win the ball, but at the same time, it's a shoulder barge. Now, 15, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, a shoulder barge is a shoulder barge. The boy goes down on the ground. There is absolutely no way that's knocking him over. It's a shoulder-to-shoulder challenge that was always perfectly legal in football. The United player doesn't get to the ball. The Kilmarnock player headers the ball miles in front of him and probably will never make it and falls to the ground. It's never a penalty in a million years. And finally, the offside, not the offside goal, the goal that was given. I mean, we didn't have goal line technology in Scottish football, so you can't 100% say that the ball was over the line. And I'm pretty sure that VAR in Scotland has the authority to give a goal using VAR if they feel the ball has went over the line. Now, you can 99.9% see and be sure, you're 99.9% you can be sure that that ball had crossed the line, judging on the fact that the ball bounces on the ground a few inches over the line. Now, rather than just being ballsy and going, well, that was in, we'll give that, rather than just making the decision, the referee, the linesman, and VAR have the cop-out of giving a foul on the goalie, when that's never a foul. The two players go up and challenge. The United goalie gets nowhere near it. The Kilmarnock player probably gets nowhere near it either. And then the ball bounces around and Tiffany pokes it in. It's a goal. I don't understand why it wasn't just given from VAR, and giving the foul on the goalie is a cop-out. But anyway, that's my opinion. I would like to hear yours.
Okay, so for the United penalty, I don't think it's going to come as a surprise for you. I might have my tangerine tinted specs on, but I think it's a penalty, mate. I totally get what you're saying. From the front angle, it looks like he does buy it a wee bit, but there is absolutely contact there. And the boy does come in at a fair pace. And I think the contact is enough for a player to fall over and for it to be a foul. I think the Killie boy's back leg catches Carestes' foot as he's stepping forward and he goes down. I totally see what you're coming from, but I think it's a penalty, mate. If it wasn't given, I would say it would be very harsh. I think, yeah, I just think it's a penalty. For Killie's penalty, I agree with you on that. I don't think it's a penalty at all. I think it's extremely, extremely harsh. I think Kelly Boy does win the header, but it's two boys going for the header, running towards the goal. There's like you say, there's a shoulder barge, but the Kelly Boy does the same thing, and the Kelly Boy falls over. Cressy stands up, and for some reason, the ref decided that's a penalty. How VAR's not got involved in that is beyond me, because I think it's never a penalty, and that should be classed as a clear and obvious error, because it's just blatantly wrong. As for Kelly's goal, or so-called goal that never got given, I agree with you as well. I think it's a goal. The ball's, from the angle you see anyway, it's clearly over the line. I think the only way I can see it not being a goal is if they've called a foul on the goalie. But Richards isn't really anywhere near the ball. And I think it would be called a foul on the goalie from him trying to punch it originally before the ball goes in the back of the net. But yeah, you're saying it's a cop-out. I could see it. I could see where you're coming from for that. But it should have stood. The ball, like you say, the ball's clearly over the line, and we're just fortunate that it wasn't, because it would have been a defeat, even though I would have got my score prediction correct.
I think we've both heard the commonly used kind of phrase where goalkeepers are a protected species, and nothing could ever be more accurate than that incident. I mean, it's two players challenging for the ball. See if it was a defender instead of the goalie challenging the boy and the defender went down. It wouldn't have been a foul. So I don't understand why it's a foul because it's the goalie. And they've used that as the reason not to give the goal, because they're not sure if it's 100% over the line. You can't be, because they've not got a goal line camera. Why we don't have goal line cameras in the Scottish Premier League, I don't know. You need two cameras. I actually seen a very good video a few months ago, and it was a boy who was on about, he was an American guy, but he was on about our football, and he was speaking about like what things that we can take from American football. Now, you'll get plenty of people on here like, oh, I'm using what the Yanks are using, but one of the things he said is that they have like, and they don't have corner flags as such, but they have posts, they have things along the side of the pitch that are on like markers on lines, and they have cameras in them. So why can't we have cameras in posts? Why can't we have cameras in corner flags? All this sort of thing to help out with decisions that are getting made. And I don't understand why we've not got goal line cameras at least. They're easy enough to put in. Put them on a pillar, put them on the end of a stand, whatever it is you need to do. One camera at either goal, and that's you sorted. And then we can have definitive proof if goals have went over the line or not. You didn't need the Hawkeye technology for it. You just need a camera. It's frustrating, and it always seems to be the boy McDermott. He's always in the news for poor decisions. It's always him. Always him. I mean, didn't get us wrong. He's got a few mates who are just as bad, if not worse, but he seems to always be in controversy. But we'll move on. Now, this week, Jack, we've got a midweek card, which I never even knew about until Saturday evening. So, on Wednesday, United welcome Rangers to Tannadice. On Saturday, they travel to Paisley to play St Mirren. What's your thoughts on those games?
Rangers game's going to be a tough one. I think they've done pretty well recently under Danny Rowe since he's taken charge of the club. They've been getting results against the teams that they should be getting results against. They also beat Hibs as well, which is a good result. I think they weren't up to it against Falkirk. I think they had something like 9 shots in total against Falkirk at the weekend there. It's obviously going to be a tough game, mate. The Rangers are obviously always going to be a tough game, and they've got a lot of money behind them now with the Red Bull ownership, essentially, I think it is. So they're going to be a tough one. As for St Mirren, their form's not great. We managed to beat them the other week. But with our form at the moment, mate, I'm not very confident. I think we could do with a win, to be honest, because we've not had enough of them. But I think it will be a tall order. We'll just have to wait and see whether Kucherenko's fit or not, and that will determine if we'll win, I think.
I think you might have seen the last of him, by the way.
Yeah.
How many years did he sign in the summer?
2 or 3, I think.
Well, maybe if he signed a 3-year deal, maybe not, but I reckon Jim Goodwin has a ruthless streak in him, and you might see a new goalie coming in January. As far as I'm aware, you've recalled some boy from East Fife.
Oh, did we? Okay.
As far as I'm aware, that might not be true, but
Rory Adams.
Yeah, well, that's his name.
That's who I said last week we should recall. So he's obviously going to listen to the podcast.
You made the only one. So I've heard that you've recalled him. He'll be on the bench, and the boy who played on Saturday will be the goalie. I would reckon that you'll have him in the goal until January, and they'll have a replacement for Kucherenko in January. And if that is the case, then that's ruthless for Jim Goodwin.
Yeah, I mean he has made a lot of mistakes, mate. I think he's only 25 or something, mate. So he's still young for goalkeeping terms, but he needs to improve on his decision making and try and be a bit more consistent. And he's not showing it just now, so I can understand why he's been dropped.
See, the thing is it ruthless and it's a good thing, and you think, well, he's made up his mind early. He's not tolerating those levels of mistakes, the regularity of those mistakes, or is it ruthless and it's harsh when, rather than working with him and improving his game and asking him to come out and catch it or just stay on your line? I mean, the 2 ones that he punched in the goal, the one at Easter Road and the one against Falkirk at Tannadice, if he just stays on his line and lets his defenders defend, those goals don't happen.
True.
So I mean, he's a decent enough keeper in terms of if you ignore those clangers he's had, if you ignore those bad games he's had and or bad moments in games, I know that the whole of the Falkirk game he was a nervous wreck after his first mistake, but in other games he's had mistakes and then he's turned out to be no bad within the match. If you ignore them, he's been a relatively decent signing, as far as I'm aware.
Mm-hmm.
He's decent enough shot stopper. I know that's, as Roy Keane would say, that's his job, but he's a decent enough shot stopper in terms of that side of things. Surely you would, rather than just burning him off, now that could just be a rumour, and it might well be the case that that's just a rumour. You would rather get your goalie coach to work with him and improve his game. And I mean, I don't think did they spend money on him, or was he a free transfer? But they've obviously had to shell out. If he was a free transfer, he signed a signing on fee. You'll not be on peanuts. So it's a bit. If it is the case that they're just getting rid of him, then it's a lot of money leaving the club.
Yeah, I think, well, according to Transfermarkt, the website, I think, according to that, we paid a fee for him. We paid, whether you believe it's not, a couple $100,000 for the boy, which is obviously a lot of money, especially for a club like United. But I think if he has been dropped, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing for him. I think it gives him a chance to develop outside of the spotlight. He'll be able to play against for the youth, like the under-19s or whatever it is nowadays. He'll be able to play for them and get experience away from the spotlight, and he'll be able to work on his game, like I say, away from all the lights and all the camera and all the fans, in private, behind closed doors, where that's the best environment for him to be. And he's obviously going to be surrounded by other goalies like Richards, like Sir Rudy Adams, who's now back from loan, that'll be able to push him in that. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing for him to be dropped. He needed to be dropped because the mistakes were costing us. Whether it's the end of the road for him or not, I don't know. It's too early to say, but it'll be interesting to see if he is able to get back into the first team after his so-called injury is healed up. But yeah, I think Rudy Adams coming back, honestly, I'd probably just play him. Like I say, well, to be fair, Dave Richards has done well, but there's no point in bringing back a 20-year-old goalie, bringing him back from a loan, and I'm just sitting on the bench. That just doesn't make sense to me. If you're bringing him back, you play him. He's obviously clearly got some ability, as I said last week. He's Scotland's under-21s goalie, so there is an ability there. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see, especially if that's true about him, or what you think will be the case of him playing his last game for United.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think the best thing for him, and I think I did say this last week, the best thing for him is to just take him out of the spotlight, work on his game in training and improve him, get his confidence rebuilt as much as anything, because he's clearly not a bad goalie, but his confidence is shattered, and a good goalie coach gets him into training and gets rid of his bad traits, and one of his bad traits is he just wants to come and punch everything. Now, a lot of goalkeepers from the continent are like that. A lot of goalies from all over the world are like that. Our goalies tend to be a bit more safe that we produce in Scotland than in Britain. But I mentioned Jack Hamilton in this point last week, I think it was. Like, Jack Hamilton was having a nightmare for Dundee the season that we got relegated under McCann and McIntyre, and McIntyre got him through to January, and as soon as we were into January, he signed the goalie, and he took him right out the spotlight. And it wasn't until the last game of the season when McPake then brought him back in again. But as soon as he brought him back in, as soon as it come on top, he made 3 howlers and we got beat 3-2. And all 3 of them were arguably his fault. He threw 3 goals in the net almost. I think one of them might not have been actually, but he certainly chucked 2 in. And you could just tell that as soon as it got heavy, as soon as the pressure was on him, he completely crumbled. And that was Jack Hamilton's Dundee career. And if you look at it, since he's left Dundee, he's hardly ever been a number 1, I don't think. So he's clearly not cut out to be a number 1. He's a number 2 goalie. He'll come in here and there and plug a hole. But the boy Kucherenko, if he's injured, he's injured, and who am I to not believe Jim Goodwin? But the getting dropped had to happen, and maybe you give him a couple of months, get him in a few reserve games, work on him in training, and then bring him back in a low pressure game in a cup or something like that. Like, bring him into the United Scottish Cup game, something like that, where you're going to be the favourites for that particular game. I don't know. Anyway, the other side of the street, Dundee, we have a midweek trip to Celtic Park, and then on Saturday we're playing against Aberdeen at Dens. Now, a trip to Celtic Park isn't exactly what you're wanting after you've won for the first time in 4 or 5 games. You would like another game against a team in and around about you who you feel like you can beat to keep confidence up. So I think even though we did a job on Celtic at Dens, it's a totally different game going to Parkhead. I think Wednesday night's a bit of a case of get out of there without getting a doing. As for the Aberdeen game on Saturday, I think we all know what's going to happen, don't we? Aberdeen against Dundee equals 3 points for Aberdeen. Death taxes and Aberdeen beating Dundee, I think we said the last time we covered them in the podcast. Any thoughts on those games, Jack?
Yeah, like you say, mate, 2 very difficult games for you. Going away to Parkhead against Celtic is a tall order at the best of times. I think they've picked up their form really well under Martin O'Neill. They're doing what needs to be done to win games, and I don't think that was the case under Brendan Rodgers. I think Rodgers seemed to be more style over substance, whereas Martin O'Neill seems to be substance over style, and they're getting the results. They might not be playing great football, but they're winning their games now. As for Aberdeen, like you say, it's almost guaranteed. Aberdeen are going to walk away with 3 points.
The thing is, Jack, they're absolutely shite.
Who, Aberdeen?
Yeah.
They've won the last 4 games, I think, so they can't be that bad.
Mate, they drew with a team called Noah last week in the Europa Conference League.
Armenian team, yeah. Yeah, but they've got, I think, I've got money behind them, mate, so I guess not. Obviously, the standard of the Armenian league's not going to be great, but I'm pretty sure they do have a bit of money behind them, so it's not a terrible result. But yeah, Aberdeen had a really poor start to the season, but they have picked up since then. It seems that they're going on one of the purple patch runs, and then they'll lose one, and then they'll lose for another 6 months or something. But as of now, they're winning winning pretty much every time in the league. So I think it's going to be a tall order for Dundee to beat them. But you never know. Presley's had a couple of good results against the Old Firm this season, so it's not necessarily out of the picture.
Well, let's hope that the first defeat on that 6-month run is at Dens on Saturday.
Yeah, potentially.
Anyway, this is up to you now. So obviously we'll have midweek games, then we've got weekend games before we next record. For the score predictor this week, are you wanting to do the midweek games, are you wanting to do the weekend games, or are you wanting to do both?
Why not both?
Okay then.
Chance for more points on the board.
Right, that's fine. Just bear with me whilst I get my predicting bitty in my notes. So we'll start off with Dundee United versus Rangers. So United fan, you go first.
I'm going to go. Let's go 1-1.
Okay. For that one, I think I'm going to go. I'm going to go 2-1 Rangers. So, for the Dundee game at Parkhead, see, this is shite, right? Because we couldn't have won either way, because it was either going to be the new manager's first game, and 99 times out of 100 you get the new manager bounce, or it was going to be Martin O'Neill's send-off, and that's what it's going to be. And he's a hero at Parkhead, is he? Rightly so. And the crowd's going to be up for it. They're all going to be up for giving him a big send-off. So Dundee have no chance of winning that game. I'm going to go 4-0 Celtic.
Oof. Bigger go home, right?
What about yourself?
I'll go 2-0 Celtic.
2-0 Celtic.
Yeah.
Okay. And then on Saturday, we've got United against St Mirren at Paisley. What do you think?
I'm going to go 1-0 United.
1-0 United, okay. What I'm going to say is, I'm going to say 2-1 United. I feel like United are going to beat them. St Mirren have got a horrendous record against Dundee teams in the past year or so. They did beat us, actually, and you. They beat you at the end of last season, they beat us at the start of this season, but all in all, they've not been great. For the Dundee Aberdeen game, as much as I'm going to go with my heart instead of my head on this one, I'm going to say 2 each.
Okay.
What about yourself?
I was going to go for an absolute drubbing, mate. But I was honestly thinking, I'm going to go big or go home, mate. I'm going 5-0 Aberdeen.
Okay then.
Why not? I might still get 1 point.
Even I didn't think that's going to happen, but there we go. So that covers that. That covers that anyway. I'll get them spreadsheets written up tomorrow. Now, since it's the 1st of December, and I don't know if you've opened your advent calendar, I haven't. Don't even know if I've got one, but I'll have to check. But we're going to do our monthly top 5. Now, Martin has sent me in one. The subject this week is goals that you've celebrated the most. And by that we mean limbs, scenes, and you have to have been at the match for this as well. It's no jumping about in your living room watching it on the telly. Now, what we'll do is we'll go with Martin's list first. I'll then bat over to you, Jack, and then I'll do mine. So coming in at number 5 for Martin is a game that I think we watched together, and it was Nadir Chiefchi's goal against Inverness in 2014. I don't know if you can help me out at all. I think we watched that. I think it was a Scottish Cup game. He just gave me a list, so I'm having to fill in the blanks a wee bit.
Oh, okay.
But I think it was a Scottish Cup game.
In Inverness?
Well, it just said versus Inverness. I think
it might have been
it was a
Inverness.
5-0 game.
Oh, I don't know about that.
It was 5-0 in the quarter-final of the Scottish Cup, I think.
All right. I remember us playing, I think it was Inverness, and Chiefchi did score. It was like a late winner. I don't think it was a 5-0 game, but it could be a different game we're on about.
The reason why I think that I watched it with you, and it was the quarter-final of the Scottish Cup, was it not the one where the goalie ran out and booted the ball off him, and he ran in and tapped it in?
Maybe. I honestly don't know, mate. My memory's like a sieve, you know that.
I think it was that one. Martin might be able to correct us when he's listening, but that's Martin's number 5 for goals celebrated the most. Give me your number 5.
My number 5 is David Robertson versus Rangers, Scottish Cup quarter final. A Scottish final replay. It was like, I think we drew at Ibrox. Replay was at Tannadice. Even game the whole time. And then in the 90th minute, David Robertson scores the winner. Absolute scenes, mate. I was in the Dode Fox. I think it's the only time I've been in the Dode Fox that went mental. So it was absolutely packed to the gunnels. And yeah, that's my number 5.
Okay. Coming in at number 5 for me was a game from 2011, and it was Neil McCann versus Raith Rovers. Now, to fill in the blanks for anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, it was the season that Dundee were in administration. They were deducted 25 points for doing so. They were playing all sorts of people as trialists. They were bringing in boys for Lochie United. They were bringing in boys who were all free agents. They were coming in, playing for 3 games and leaving. Neil McCann came in as a trialist, and this was the first of 3 games that he played. He also played against Stirling Albion away from home, and I think it was Queen of the South at Dens, but this was the first game he played. Came in from being a pundit with Sky, and we were getting beat 1-0 from Raith Rovers, who were going along nicely with Dunfermline in the title race that season. They were 1-0 up, and Gary Harkin scored the free kick with a couple of minutes to go. And in an injury time, Neil McCann, as he was swivelling onto his backside, lobbed the ball over the goalie for a 2-1 victory. And I've never seen the Derry like that before. I think I would have been about 15 at the time, and I'd never seen the Derry react like that to a goal. I have since, but the feeling of jubilation, emotion because of what Dundee were going through at that stage was, I think it all came out when that goal went in, and it was a bit of a theme that season. So that's my number 5. For Martin's list, for number 4, he has went with, is it Ian Harkes?
Yeah.
Is that his first name? Yep. He just put Harkes, but is it Ian Harkes versus Dundee, and specifically specified 6-2, but I've put 2019.
I think is that the long ranger he hit? Hit the long ranger right after the start of the second half.
Yeah, I was in the pub by then.
Yeah, deflected off a Dundee boy and went in the top corner. I'm pretty sure that was the goal he's on about.
Well, that's Martin's number 5. Are you able to fill in any more gaps?
No, not for that. Not for that one. That's just all I remember as for that goal. That's all I remember is he cuts inside, hits it from distance, takes a deflection off a Dundee defender and goes in the top corner.
Okay.
I believe that's the goal he's on about.
I think so. Number 4. What did you
I've
go
went
for?
Glenn Middleton versus AZ Alkmaar. Of standing in the shed, watching Middleton, he skins 2 AZ Alkmaar players, manages to slot it in the bottom corner, beating the keeper. It was scenes, mate. Obviously, AZ Alkmaar, massive team, and compared to us anyway, and to be able to score that goal and get the result was a great experience. Because I think that was the first time I'd seen United win in Europe. So, yeah, I celebrated that goal a lot. So that's my number 4.
Okay. Number 4 for me was the night that Paul Heffernan shut the Derry. It was Paul Heffernan making it 3-1 against United at Dens in 2015. Well, that game was the first time Dundee had beaten United in a long, long time, given they'd barely played them for a long, long time. And it was one of the matches where, because they hadn't beat them in a long, long time, you didn't want to admit yourself at the match that you felt that was going to be the night. But looking back on it, the feeling you had, you just knew that that was our night. We went 1-0 up early on when what was the name of the United goalie at the time? He was Polish.
Czerniak.
Him. He chucked one through his legs from Greg Stewart, who scarfed it towards him. United do what they usually did at that time, and they scored a penalty straight away and equalised, but Dundee went right up the park and went 2-1 up, and he just felt like this has got to be a night. Kevin Thompson ran the match by himself. He was outstanding. One of the best individual Dundee performances I've ever seen. What a player he was. And then towards the end, Greg Stewart put the ball across the goal and Paul Heffernan tapped it in. And it was at the time where there was no fence at the front of the Derry, so everyone used to just steam forward, a bit of like an avalanche. And we'd been warned numerous times by the board, by the police and whatever, that if we kept doing it, something was going to happen. That was the night that the straw broke the camel's back, I think is the saying. If not, what a minute. But after that match, half the Derry got shut and had to put in a big huge fence that's there today at the front of the stand. So that was my number 4. We'll move on to Martin's number 4, and it was Darren Dodds. That number 3, Darren Dodds versus Celtic in 2009.
I've got no chance of remembering that.
Now, based off of my pretty decent footballing memory, and I feel like I'm right here, I'm pretty sure it was a winner after you'd equalised against them late. So you late equalised in, like, say, the 88th minute or something like that, and then Darren Dodds scored a header in injury time to beat them 2-1. You hadn't beat them in, like, 8 or 9 years, and it was the first time you'd beaten Celtic in that at the time. And Darren Dodds scored the winner.
Nah, doesn't ring a bell.
So, yeah, 2009. That's what I could think. But we'll move on to your number three.
My number three is David Goodwillie's goal against Ross County in the Scottish Cup final. I think at that time, obviously, playing Ross County, who were in the Championship, you just expected, from scoring that first goal, you kind of expected to win. And scoring that goal, obviously, it was 0-0 first half. Tight game. Ross County just defending really well, and Goody's able to chip the keeper from about 25 yards out. So, yeah, it was that goal's one that will stick in the memory for a long time, because obviously that led to us winning the Scottish Cup. So, yeah, number three is going to be David Goodwillie.
Okay. For me, number three was James McPake versus Dundee United at Tannadice. Let me put it into perspective. The boy in front of me had a fit, an actual seizure after that goal went in.
That's wild.
So we're 2-0 down with 10 minutes to go. Greg Stewart scores with about 82nd, 83rd minute. Great goal, actually, he scored in that game. And then with the last kick of the ball, Gary Harkins hits it from range. The goalie fumbles it, and McPake runs in and slides the ball in for an equaliser. You know what I hate in modern day football is when you hear all this stuff about you're celebrating it like it's a cup final, or you're celebrating it like you've won the Champions League, or you do it's only for a draw, 2-2 win. Like, you can't celebrate a last minute equaliser against your biggest rivals. Like, I were not at the football for moments like that. I were not at the football to celebrate goals. So,
Diddy behaviour, mate.
If it was roles reverse and United had scored that, there would have been absolute pandemonium. I'll only refer back to this once. Jim Hamilton, 2001, United fans on the pitch. Anyway, the goal went in and it was absolute carnage. It was back in the day where United were simmed and give you the shed, but now they don't. Now it's a shite away day and you're stuck in the stand where you can't see anything. Anyway, right, pandemonium, absolutely brilliant, good scenes. Anyway, moving on to number two. I'm hoping you all have a bit of an idea about this. I was actually at this match, but I'm hoping that you will, to fill in a bit more gaps. Number two for Martin, it was David Goodwillie versus Slask Rocklaw in 2011.
I wasn't actually at this game, mate, so I can't tell you.
I couldn't remember if it was the first goal or the second goal that he scored in that game. I'm pretty sure it was the second goal, because United were 1-0 down from the first leg. And if memory serves me, I'm pretty sure Keith Watson made it 1-0 on the night and 1-1 on aggregate. And it was like really, really early. It was like a minute or two into the match. And then basically straight away, Goodwillie made it 2-1 or 2-0, 2-1 on aggregate. So that'll be what Martin's been in. That second goal.
Yeah, probably.
How come you weren't at this game?
I don't know, mate. I don't know. I'm a part-time fan, mate, clearly.
The reason why I was at this game was because I was out with my cousin. Must have been the summer holidays at the time from school. We were at school at the time. And we were out and about in the town that day. I went to the old Olympia that day. And there was thousands of their fans in the town. Because they brought like 2,500 over, didn't they not? And he was like, "Oh, we'll go to the game. We'll go in the end with all their fans." And I was like, "You've got a death wish."
Yeah, fuck that.
So we ended up compromising. He says we'll go in the shed. So we went in the shed and sat right beside their fans. And actually, at one point, one of their fans jumped over where, like, you know, where you at Tannadice, where Sky Sports have their presenting box.
Yeah.
A couple of guys jumped onto that and got into the shed.
Oof.
So yeah, that was quite intimidating. Anyway, that is number two for Martin. What about yourself? What's number two for you?
Number two for me is a goal against Aberdeen. It was for a top six finish, and it was Rory Bolden in the 90th minute. It was a game where it was quite even. United had made numerous chances, and Clanners, Jamie Langfield, had an unbelievable game. I couldn't believe it. It was like a man possessed, mate. He was stopping everything. And then we bring on this unknown boy, Rory Bolden, barely played for United. I think we signed him in January. Hadn't really contributed anything, and he manages to get into a bit of space right at the end of the game and slot it past Jimmy Langfield, and that was absolute scenes, mate. I always I always remember I went to this game with a bright, like, fluorescent blue jumper on, mate, and you could see me from a mile away on the telly, and I kept watching. I kept seeing myself jumping with a goal. But yeah, that was I was unbelievable. Like, Jamie Langfield had such a good game, and to beat your so-called rivals in the 90th minute to secure top six was really good.
Okay, fair enough. Taking second place for me, moving away from Dundee, was Lee Griffiths' second free kick against England in 2017. Now, obviously the first free kick, there was scenes. But when that second free kick went in, and one of my favourite things in football, and I reckon this is why Martin went for the Good Willie one against Rocklaw in the previous, for his number 2, was when you score and the crowd are all still celebrating the first goal effectively, and then you pretty much score straight away, and because you're still kind of, the euphoria hasn't died down from the first goal, it's even more euphoria for the second goal, and that was the case for that one. Adding for the fact it was against England, just absolute carnage. I've got both goals on video. They're on my YouTube channel. And at one point, you hear me say, like, screaming, like, yes, yeah. At one point, my voice just breaks into, like, the loudest pitch you've ever, like, the highest pitch you've ever heard, and it's just like a squeal more than anything else. So, yeah, that was that goal, and we were right behind the goal as well. Obviously, but at Hampden, you're not right behind the goal. You're about halfway back to Stirling, but directly behind the goal for that goal. So, yeah, some memory. And moving on to Martin, number 1 for him is the same goal, so we don't have to talk about that. I just wish that Harry Kane didn't equalise a couple of minutes later, because we would have had a win against England. But
Stuart Armstrong, yeah.
Well, Stuart Armstrong, Craig Gordon, Charlie Mulgrew, Andy Robertson, you could blame any of them. None of them done their job properly. But anyway, number 1 for yourself, what did you go for?
It's a game that you've mentioned previously that you were gutted at, and it's Yaroslav Foyut's header in the League Cup, 90th minute against Dundee. A game where I think Dundee were the better team. It was in the period where I think Dundee were still in the Championship, and United had
Dundee were an SPL team.
Oh, we were in the SPL, yeah, but I don't think yours were very good. United.
No. That was the season we were on, actually. We finished top 6 that season.
Was it? Oh, well,
yeah, so we came up in 2012 with a team full of First Division players because it was late. And we were, like, told late that we were in the Premier League. We got relegated, and then we came straight back up, and it was that season. We had Kevin Thompson and other players by then.
Yeah. Okay, so but anyway, it was the League Cup third round, I think it was, and we came up against Dundee, and Dundee were the better team. Literally, I think it was the 90th minute, corner, Yaroslav Foyut heads it, big baldy head into the back of the net, and that was the only game I've been at where I've ended up on the floor, which is probably happens a lot for a lot of other people, but it doesn't happen to me, and it's the only game since as well that I've ended up on the floor. So I think that says a lot about how mental I was going at that goal, and it's always good to score a last minute winner against your biggest rivals. So yeah, number 1 for me, Yaroslav Foyut.
Okay. Number 1 for me, I couldn't pick between the two of them, but it was a game from not that long ago. It was the Scotland versus Denmark game, and I couldn't make up my mind between McTominay's overhead kick and Kenny McLean's 4th goal. Just when the first goal went in, because it's obviously so early, and because it was an overhead kick that Scotland scored, it was just complete and utter pandemonium. But when that 4th goal went in, you knew that you had qualified. The game hadn't even finished yet, and you knew because it was so late and they needed to score twice, and even Scotland couldn't fuck that up. And it was just a feeling I've never felt before at a football match. I mean, after the goal went in, the referee never even restarted the match. The songs were on, Free From Desire, all that sort of thing. I just remember sitting on my seat and just complete and utter disbelief. It was nearing tears. It was that good a feeling. If you could bottle that feeling up and sell that, I would be broke. I'd be skint consistently because I'd be an addict. It is singly the best feeling I've ever felt in my life.
I'm surprised you never said Tierney's goal.
See, Tierney's goal was good because it was obviously it was a last minute winner in inverted commas. It was the one that won the game,
Yeah.
but the McLean goal was better because you knew it was done by then. Like
Yeah.
the Tierney goal was late, but it wasn't late enough where there was still 5 minutes left for Denmark to score. Whereas the Kenny McLean goal going in, that was it. That was it done.
Yeah.
So
Pure relief.
if you were to pin me down and say McTominay or McLean, I'd probably go with McLean, but it would be like a ball here in it. But I couldn't pick between the two of them. They're both joint top, and because they're from the same game, I thought that was fair. So that's my list. What about you? Have you got any honourable mentions at all?
I would say Craig Conway's first against Ross County. I've not got anything written down, but I think that one, basically, like, okay, 2-0 up, I think that's us pretty much got this in the bag, got the Scottish Cup for the first time since I was born. Other than that, I can't really think of many, to be honest. Goals against Dynamo Moscow, that was good. Unestrassen as well. I wouldn't say that was scenes, but it was good to know that you'd basically secured the win. But yeah, I think that's probably it for me, to be honest. What about yourself?
So when I was writing mine down, I just wrote a big list of all the ones I could remember, and obviously the ones I didn't then put into my top five, which could just be honourable mentions. So the first one I've got here is Craig Whiting against United in the Dundee Derby. I felt like if I put that in, it'd be pettiness, so I kept that out. But Martin, with his specific 6-2 in brackets, could piss right off. Scott McTominay against Israel. You were at that match, and you can't how you can't remember that goal is beyond me. Right? Do you sit in your bed at night and get your girlfriend to batter you over the head with something?
Mate, I just didn't sleep, that's my problem. So I don't have a
Oh
chance to
dear.
remember stuff.
Another one was Martin Skirtle. He scored an OG for Slovakia against Scotland, and it was like 89th minute or something. And it was one of the games where they went down to 10 men in the first half, Slovakia, and we battered them off the park. We hit the bar about 3 times. The keeper was the boy Dubravka that plays for Newcastle, I think, or Burnley, and he was. I've never seen a goalie performance like it in my life. He was outstanding. He was saving everything. As I say, we hit the bar, we had so many good chances, and then right at the end, we scored the worst goal you'll ever see in your life from a Scotland OG, and the place erupted. So that was one of them. Colin McMenamin scored a goal against St Johnstone in 2008, I think it was. We won 3-2. It was my favourite type of game. You go 1-0 up, they equalise. You go 2-1 up, they equalise, and then went 1-3-2 in the 93rd minute. So that was a good one. A game which I always forget about, but it was an unbelievable game in a massive circumstances. The game that we played against Queen's Park 2 or 3 years ago when we won the league on the last day of the season, and it was a us v them shootout for the league title. And the fact that I could never ever bring this game up is beyond me because it was some experience to be at. But any goal from that game, basically. Probably the pick of the lot of them was the fourth goal. It was 3-3 at half time, and we came out in the second half, and Lyle Cameron made it 4-3. That was probably the pick of the lot of them. And then the last one I had was Jim McAllister's goal against United at Dens in 2013, where we hadn't scored against United for 10 years or whatever it was, and he was the first boy to do it. And it was at Dens in the Scottish Cup game, where you and Martin sat in the Dundee end of the main stand.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just an avalanche of people on the Derry down to the front. So that one sticks in my mind as well. So was that 6 honourable mentions to go with my top 5. So yeah, another good round of top 5s for us. We'll put them on screen now, or I'll put them on screen before now, just whatever. But we'll move on to the next stage of the podcast, which is the Futbology Challenge. So we'll not have to cover this very much because we didn't really have any games. I'm the only one who's got a game. You'll see the results now and the league table on screen if you're listening on YouTube. Martin and Jack both had forfeit weeks, and I was the only one who had a game, and it was a 1-0 win for Dundee away to Dunfermline in 2007, the 1st of December 2007. The only time I've actually ever seen Dundee win at East End Park, by the way. So the managers on the day were Stephen Kenny and Alex Ray. The start 11 for Dunfermline: Paul Gallagher, Sol Bamba. There's the blast for the past.
That is.
Jamie Harris, Danny Murphy, Callum Woods, Stephen Simmons, Darren Young, Stephen Glass, Mark Burchill, Stevie Crawford and Jim Hamilton. And on the bench, Sean Murdoch, Scott Thompson, Scott Morrison, Michael McGlinchey, Ian Williamson and Scott Morrison. And for Dundee, Craig Sampson, David Worrell, Gary McKenzie, Milan Palinic, Eddie Malone, Paul McHale, Scott Robertson, Kevin McDonald, Gavin Swankie, Derek Lyle and Bob Davidson. And on the bench was Ludovic Roy, Freddie Daquin, Paul Dixon, Yanni Sturm and Jan Zemelek. The scorer was Kevin McDonald on the 72nd minute. So, the league table has had a bit of a shift. I'm now up to second after quite a few weeks on the bottom of the league. Jack now moves to the bottom. So with the forfeits, Martin remains on 19 points. I move up to 14 and Jack's on the bottom with 12. So next week's Futbology Challenge, we've hopefully got some more games to cover. But that brings a close to episode 22. Is there anything else, Jack, that you'd like to add before we call it a day?
No, got nothing to add here, mate.
You're just wanting to go off for a strepsil, are you?
Yeah.
Well, just before we go, I'll cover the socials again. I know that you've probably already, if you're listening, you've probably already followed, but we'll go through it for those who haven't. On Twitter or X, we are at Sandeman ST Pod. That is at Sandeman ST Pod, and on Instagram we are at the Sandeman Street Pod, at the Sandeman Street Pod. Sandeman is spelled Sandeman, at the Sandeman Street Pod. If you listen on YouTube, give this video a like and subscribe to our channel if you can. That has been a good episode. The monthly top fives are always my favourite. Couple of games this week, so we'll have plenty to cover next week as well. Jack, thanks very much as always, and thanks very much to everyone listening. Have a great weekend. Cheers.